upgrade. Software upgrade is happening. One is Ulta switch, sir. This one. But power is coming, sir.
I'll just check. Plugged in, charging. Plugged in, charging. Okay, we will start. बटविटपि समीपे भूमिभागे निषन्नं सकलमुनिजनानां ज्ञानदातारमारात् त्रिभुवनगुरुमीशं दक्षिणामूर्तिदेवं जननमरणदुःखछेददक्षं नमामि। चित्रं पटतटोर्मूले वृद्धा शिष्या गुरोर्युवा गुरोरस्तु मौनं व्याख्यानम् शिष्यास्तु छिन्न संशयाः। ओम नमः प्रणवार्ताय शुद्ध ज्ञानैकमूर्तये निर्मलाय प्रशांताय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। So we are still seeing the Dhyana shlokas. I think last class we saw this. We'll quickly go over it. निदये सर्वविद्यानां विषजे भवरोगिणां गुरवे सर्वलोकानां दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः. So as I was mentioning, stotras are either in Dvitiya Vibhakti or Chaturtha Vibhakti. Either they are in Dvitiya or Chaturthi. So this is in Chaturthi. I was making that point. Since we went through a little bit of Sanskrit, I just wanted to once in a while remind. So Sarva Vidyanam Nidhi. Nidhi Shabdasya Chaturthi Nidhaye. Sarva Vidyanam Nidhaye. The repository of all knowledge. So all knowledge, in a Vedantic sense, it means, Paravidya. But, all knowledge includes Paravidya and Aparavidya. Everything is included. All forms of knowledge, the resident of all those source of knowledge is the description here. Nidaye sarva vidyanam. Bishaje bhavaroginam. All those who are bitten by the disease of birth and death. Bhavaroga. As I was mentioning in the last class, and as Chinmayanandaji used to say, womb to tomb. So that is one way to describe our Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. I think this is an endless cycle. The very realization that somewhere we are going through this cycle is itself is a great progress to develop that escape velocity to come out of this endless circle. So that is the Bhavaroga. So Bhavaroginam, for all those who are bitten by this disease of samsara, samsara sagara, for them he is the Bishak. Is a doctor. So Nirvanam, Beshajam, Bishak is what you find in Vishnu Sahasranama. Beshajam, Bishak and so on. So Bishaje, that's what I was trying to quote. This Samsara Sagara is what Shankaracharya says in Bhajagovindam. Punarapi, Jananam, Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Janani, Jatare Shainam. Iha Samsare, Bahudustare, Kripaya Pare. So I think this is a very fundamental, much larger disease that we need to recognize. there is this endless process of birth and death, and of all the dukkha's that we have, the samsara dukkha is the biggest, but it takes much longer time to even, take cognizance of it, to understand it. So Dakshinamurti, praying to Dakshinamurti will give us that the first wisdom that we need to understand that this birth and death is an endless process, and the liberation from this is what we must aspire for. So that is what being mentioned here. Vishaje Pavrogina Gurave Sarvalokanam. Because Dakshinamurti, as you see it from a Puranic angle, as you see it from a Vedantic perspective, as you see it in whichever perspective, he is the Adi Guru. So for Sarva Lokanam, for all the 14 lokas, he is the primordial Guru, because the story goes how the Sanaka, Sanakananda, Sanatana, Sanandana, all these four, how they were the Manasa Putras of Brahma. So even if you look at it from that perspective, he is the primordial and the Adi Guru. So that is why Gurave Sarvalokanam Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. So that is what this Dhyana Shloka. I think we saw this in a little bit detail. The last in this series is Om Nama Pranavartaya Shuddha Jnanaika Murtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. So Pranavartaya Om Namaha iti Pranavasya Arthaha. In fact, we saw it in Taittiriya Upanishad. There was one in the Sikshavalli. One of the Upasana is Pranava Upasana. Om iti Brahma, Om iti idagam Brahm, Om iti etadanu Hasmava Shavayotya Shavayanti, Om iti Samani Gayanti. All those are there. How Om, we saw it in great detail at that time. I think this Akara, Ukara, Makara Sanyoga, which is the Om, which is in fact, the most interesting part about Om, which we have seen it a few times, Om is not a lipi. Om is not a lipi at all. It is a Shabda Brahma. So in any language, Om is Om. So Om is, there's so much of descriptions available about Om. Om is the mother of all Chandas. Om, so many we have seen. So here Dakshinamurti is being worshipped as that very embodiment of the entire Vedic wisdom which is contained in Om. So Om Nama Pranavartaya. So that is the description given to Dakshinamurti in this Dhyana Shloka. He is the embodiment of this Nada Brahman Om, which is the embodiment of all knowledge resident, and which is nothing but Sakshat Brahman. In a, the Mandukya Upanishad has so much of description about this whole idea of Om. The 12 mantras and the Karika. Of course, the Karika is very related to Dakshinamurti Stotra, but the 12 mantras in Mandukya Upanishad is all about Om. So there is so much of description of Om which we must bear in mind when we say Om Nama Pranavartaya. Shuddha Jnana Eka Murtaye. Dakshinamurti is the ultimate representation of that purest form of knowledge, which is nothing but purity. Shuddha Jnanaika Murtaye. And because of that purity of knowledge and nothing but knowledge, embodiment of knowledge and nothing else, the rest of the descriptions come. Nirmalaya, one which is stainless. And talking of Mala, there are, I think, the Malas originate out of Ajnana. Mala is a form of impurity and imperfection that we all go through, which happens because of Ajnana. Ajnana leads to Ahankara. Ahankara leads to the world of Vyavahara, in which the sense of agency creeps in. And so therefore we get this Punya, and we get into this construct of Punya and Papa, and that leads us to the Sukha and Dukkha. So this whole world of duality are nothing but representation of the Mala. So Shuddha Jnanaika Murtaye, the pure embodiment of knowledge, the pure state of perfection, is being described with all these adjectives in the second line that you say. Nirmalaya, Prashantaya. So when this whole impurity, the whole state of imperfection is somebody is devoid of all that, then that is the prashanta manas. The sukha dukkha, the punya papa, all those frameworks disappear. Therefore, prashantaya, dakshina murtaye namaha. So that is how all these five dhyana mantras are very popularly uttered. So we thought we will go through it. So with this we will formally get into the Dakshinamurti Stotra. But before we get into, because the first two shlokas, the first three shlokas contains the essence of the entire teaching, and they are quite heavy in terms of their meaning, and they are as powerful as some of the mantras in the Upanishads. So I think it requires a little bit of a preamble before we see that. Because Manasollasa also, first 10 shlokas are those preamble for this entire Dakshinamurti Stotram. See, man, human beings, when I say man, human beings are nothing, are thinking animals. The only difference between all other creations of God and a human being is the ability to think. That's why we say man is a thinking animal. Now, it is impossible for us to be in a state of not thinking unless we reach a very high state of salvation and so on. Until then, this thinking is an essential component of a human being. We all know that. Now, the question is, so thinking is a very inevitable process in our evolution. It is inevitable. Thinking is very much a part of our DNA. So therefore, the question is not about thinking. The question is, what do we think? That assumes more importance at this stage of our evolution, because it is inevitable to think of a state where we won't think. So we will be thinking all the time. So I was thinking about this whole idea itself, and I was wondering, there are 4 types of thoughts which we may go through. Broadly, I put it under 4 types of thoughts. The first type of thoughts, I call it as Vilapanam. Because there are a set of thinking that there are set of things we may think about. For instance, why am I so unlucky? This is a thought which comes. Something happens and then we start wondering, why am I so unlucky? So this thought of, why should I go through so many problems in life? There is a train of thoughts, and I have a set of thoughts which belong to this category. Why should I go through so many problems in even smallest things in that unsettles us? We get into these kinds of thoughts. Oh, I have been like this. Why should it happen? I have been doing only good. This mind is so powerful. It, there's an avalanche of thoughts which belong to this category. Or, he is lucky. If I don't think about me, I think about somebody else. He is lucky. He is getting everything. Why am I not getting? There is this comparative thinking also starts. Right? He is lucky, he gets everything in life. Why am I not getting what Papa I have done? These are very normal sort of things people go through at times. Or why are my problems not melting away? So there are a set of, this is one set of thoughts. Man as a thinking person, sometimes we keep thinking like this. So I call it as Vilapanam. This is all rattling the mind, and that process of rattling the mind will only make us even more unhappy. It will only, make us, these shad ripus may become more. Kama, krodha, moha, mada, matsarya, lobha, all these can only get further. So this is one set of thoughts people may have. So the question is, what do we think is important? This is one set of thoughts. Now there is a second set of thoughts which doesn't belong to this category, but it is equally bad in some sense. And I call it as, what I call it as dreaming. There's a lot of thoughts which relate to dreaming variety. Building expectations. Trying to create a certain future about myself or things pertaining to me which may or may not exist. We do not know. I call it as dreaming perspectives. Our expectations and so on. How can I get the best things in my life? Lot of our thought also goes in there. How can I get the best things in my life? Lot of effort goes into that kind of thinking. How to build assets, faster promotion, how do I progress faster in whatever I do. A whole lot of ideas like that. How can I avoid a bad health or a disease? How can I keep myself young and fit? A whole lot of thoughts like this. Here the thought is, I don't call it is blatantly negative. I'm not calling it like that. It is not even comparative. But these kind of thoughts also will lead us to the Shad Ripus. Because somewhere this thought can lead us to, because the expectation building can lead to a situation where we did not meet the expectation, which will take us to the Vilapana. So these two categories of thoughts, according to me, are thoughts. If we engage in this kind of thoughts too often in our life, then we are not able to even prepare ourselves for a greater evolution of an individual. Because we will get stuck with the Shad Ripus in one way or the other. So these are two categories of thoughts. Many of us may have, as a thinking animal, I may, spend my energy thinking like this. So this is one variety. There are two more set of thoughts which are possible, which does not belong to this category. I see a certain element of positivity in that. I see a certain element of hope in that. But even in that, there are two categories. Let's look at the first category. And this is a genuine desire to know. If you want to use the word jignasa, we can use the word jignasa. A genuine desire to know. So this later category belongs to that, but there are two categories within that. One set of category is a genuine desire to know things which are useful for Vyavahara. What I mean by that is a genuine desire to know how something works. There is nothing negative in that. I am not at all attributing anything negative to that. How does something work? How does science works? What is the know-how of this? Management, new knowledge, general knowledge. Whatever you want to add. I want to know about what is happening in a positive sense, I am saying. So, science, management, know-how, acquiring more knowledge. This is one kind of thought people can have. I don't see negativity in this, unlike the previous two categories. But this also has a limitation, because while it prepares an individual for a possibility, it is still not taking me to the path of evolution. So it is a lower level of jignasa, because it is at a vyavaharic level. Then there is a fourth level, because this is what in Bhagavad Gita also, when Krishna talked about four types of bhaktas, 19th sloka in chapter 7, he says Arti, Arthartha, Jignasa and Jnani. So he puts Jignasa there. So the third Jignasa is the last category I am talking here. No, we can have another set of thoughts as a thinking animal. And what are those? What is my real nature? Who am I? The Ramana Maharishi's whole idea of who am I? It is also a thought. Some people at times get into that thought. Who am I? What is my true nature? Where did I come from and where do I go? These are not, foolish thoughts. Maybe these thoughts don't come to us often, but these thoughts also come. Question is, who am I? Where did I come from? Where do I go? I don't want to push these ideas under the carpet and then ignore it. There are stages in life when people get into this kind of thought also. So, where did I come from? And where do I go? Or more seriously, what is the relationship between Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara? Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, Sambandha. What is that? I exist. There is an experience of I existing. It is an anubhuti. It is not a knowledge. You are not telling me I exist. That's why you switch off everything pitch dark. I know I am there. I may not know you are there. I may need a torch. But I know for sure I am there because it is anubhuti. It's a matter of experience. So I exist. Jagat. There is something called Jagat which I am seeing. And there is something called a larger force. What is the connection between these three? So this set of questions, this is again a thought. Man as a thinking animal can also think like this. So the question is, while thinking may be inevitable, the question that is of interest to us is what kind of thoughts are useful. So the first two set of thoughts are not useful really from a perspective of evolving an individual. It can create more competition, can create more anger, more fear and jealousy. All that can happen. The third category of thoughts, develops the seed of Jignasa. Traveling that path for long, we will realize that there are better questions to ask. So that way it is still a positive part to start. But the last set of questions are questions which are eternal, which I think every one of us will have to ask at some stage or other, while the proportion of the questions can keep changing. I may start with 90% of the first two category, but a little bit of satsanga and a little bit of things can gravitate me more into saying a certain proportion of time I am asking the last set of questions. Who am I? Where have I come from? What is this complex reality, so-called reality which I am seeing? So finding answers to these questions have been the preoccupation of a person who genuinely wants to evolve, a person who genuinely wants to understand who he is or who she is. So the ancestors, the great seers, acharyas have made an attempt to answer these questions. They have not wasted the time on the other three types. They have not at all spent time on the other three, particularly not the first two types. Maybe the third type a little bit, but more importantly, the last category of questions. How do I know who I am? How do I connect myself to what I see? What is right, what is wrong? How do you make sense of it? So Dakshinamurti Stotram is also in that domain. Because at the end of the day, that is a question which we will all get in sooner or later, and therefore a way to explain that and way to understand that will be very valuable. In fact, the entire gamut of Upanishad teaching lies there. So if you go back to, so in an effort to answer those questions, it becomes inevitable sooner or later that there are a few constructs which we will start trying to understand. For example, there is this notion of Atma and Anatma. Because in our journey to understand, so many things we will hit. You know, when you make a journey, even if you make a Tirtha Yatra, on the way you encounter so many things. And there is a lot of learning which happens even when we encounter. So this is no different. So in this journey to understand who am I, which is called the Atma Vidya, because that is, I think, the ultimate question. That is the final question. All questions are in between. Finally, we want to know who am I, what am I made up of, and who am I. And in that effort to understand, when we make an effort with the help of scriptures, with the help of Upanishads and these kinds of stotras, so many constructs will come and go. Because that is the only way we will clear the ground for ourselves. For example, Atma Anatma Vichara. What is Atma and what is Anatma? I think somewhere we will get into that kind of understanding. And what is Nitya and Anitya? Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka. What is temporary, what is permanent, what exists forever, what does not exist forever. These things will become inevitable because more and more we clarify these ideas, the answer to our question will also get a little more clarified. What is object versus subject? Vishaya and Vishayi. Object is something which can be accessed only through Indriyas. Indriyartha. Objects, if you want to see Vishaya, you need Indriyas. But the question is, who is seeing it? If you want to ask, instead of what or how or why, if you want to ask who, instead of asking what am I seeing, if you want to ask who is seeing it, that's a much different and a profound question. Who is seeing all these? Then the question gets much deeper. You are going into Vishayi from Vishaya. Vishaya is object. Vishayi is the seer. So now if the question is about the seer, then it is a very different question. We will encounter that. Because these are the ways by which we will be able to understand this construct of who am I. So Vishaya Vishayi. And in the process, we will understand there is a world outside and the world inside. Because Vishayi pertains to inside. Vishaya is anything other than the inside. So that construct will also come in the way. Or as we found in chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita, we will get into Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Idam Shariram, Kaunteya Kshetram it abhidhiyate. Kshetrajnam apimam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. So very clearly said, there is something called kshetra, there is something called kshetrajna, the knower of the kshetra, the field and the knower. So that construct will come, because more and more we inquire these things, this clarity of who am I will become better and better. So even that will have to happen. And this is a journey in which we will, so there are so many of these Vedantic constructs. For example, Deha Abhimana, this Deha. What is this Deha? I am not the body. I am not the body is the first understanding that one has to develop. Because if you say I am the body, then a person whose both hands are amputated in an accident or his legs are gone, he is not 70% of what he is. He is full blown the same person. He is not the body. So if he is the body, then a certain proportion of the body goes, his eye must become smaller. His eye will never become smaller. He will be like that because he is not able to hear or he is not able to speak. His eye-ness will not come down. So I am not the body is the first thing which we will have to contemplate. The body is not mine. We have to go to Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahmananda Valli. The Panchakosha will tell us the body is not mine. We talked about Virat, we talk about how this whole creation, happened and so on. So I am not the body is not mine. The body is not for me. That's another construct which will help us understand. So all these issues we cannot escape. Because unless these issues are again and again and again reflected on, this notion of Atma, who am I, will be something which cannot be understood. The reason for all that is simply because if it is the object, then the means of knowledge is the Indriyas. If it is the subject, the means of knowledge is not the Indriyas. The means of knowledge is experience. So others can only facilitate the experience. Final knowledge is only experience. It is not what you saw and so on. So therefore the entire Vedantic text Upanishads have taken this route saying, how can I describe how can you give an expression to experience? Poets are trying, people are trying, but it doesn't go too far. The experience is one. Giving an expression to experience is imperfect always. So we have to live with this imperfection. That is why all these ideas of, so now I cannot describe the experience. So I have to describe about the experience. So now I have to use something else and then try to use it for explaining this. That is why the whole tatastha will come. I don't know where is the house. So I will show you a tree and say, you see the tree there? The house, below the tree is the house. So I am not at all pointing to the house, although I want to tell about the house. I am describing the tree now. My object is to, get the house, but I am not going to do because that's inaccessible. Because from this distance, the tree is accessible. So now I describe the tree with the hope that if you get the tree right and then if you went on that path, you will find the house. So finding the house is a final Atma Anubhava, Swatma Anubhava. But the process to facilitate is there is a tree there. You see the tree there, the house near that is that the house you are looking at. So this entire text takes only that route. So the individual experience is done through some pointing to something else. Dakshinamurti Stotra also does all that kind of things. It is really a distilled piece of knowledge that is available in any top class Upanishad, which is condensed here. This is as good as reading a solid Upanishad. It's a very heavy stotra in that sense of the term. So all these we will find here. And in the first shloka, which we are going to see, in the first shloka, Shankaracharya establishes the relationship between the Jagat and the individual. This is what he is first, because this is the question which we need to answer. What is this world of which I am a part? How do I resolve? What is this relationship between the two? So he establishes that in the first shloka. He brings a set of two examples, and through those two examples he actually tries to explain what is the relationship between a jiva and the Jagat, which is what he is attempting in the first shloka. So Sureshwaracharya wrote Manasollasa, which are all in a shloka form. So for the first shloka of Dakshinamurti Stotra, there are 31 shlokas he has written. Of that, the first 4 are he does, invocation. Ganesha and all those, he does invocation. Then in shlokas 5, 6, 7, he also says that there are a few questions. He talks about a few questions which are similar to, what I was trying to. So we'll look at those. So in the 4th, 5th and 6th, 7th shloka, this is how it goes. Asti prakashata iti vyavaharaha pravartate. People say, it exists, it illumines, it shines. Like that people say in Vyavahara, Tacha Astitvam, right? Prakashatvam, Kasminarte Pratishtitam. What does this mean? What does this mean to say, somebody exists, something exists and it illumines? What is the meaning of that? That's the first question he raises. Tatcha Astitvam Prakashatvam, Kasminarte Pratishtitam. How do you make sense of this word Asti Prakashate iti? Prakashata iti. Kim teshu teshu va arteshu kim va sarvatman ishware. Is this notion of this illumines, this exists, this is being told in what sense? It is in the sense of the Ishvara, or is it told in several other contexts? What is it? What does it mean? Okay? Ishwaratvam cha jivatvam sarvatmatvam cha kidrisham. What is this Ishvara? What is this Jiva? What is this Sarvatma? All these are being told. What is the meaning of all these? What is the sense of all these? That's another question which he raises. Janiya tat katam jivaha kim tad jnanasya sadhanam. How does a Jiva knows himself? How does he know who am I? Right? That's the next question. Katam jivaha janiyat tat. All these ideas of I exist, there is something called existence, there is something is illumines, and how does a Jiva knows all that? Jnanasya sadhanam. What is the means by which one can even know this? All these are being told, but how do we really understand all these? Jnanasya sadhanam. Kim tad jnanasya sadhanam? Jnanatasya palam kim. By knowing it, what is the prayojana? Why should I know? Is it for the sake of knowing it, or what is it? Jnanatasya palam kim syat. What could be the prayojana of this? Ekatvam cha katam bhaved. What is this oneness that is being talked about, and how do you reach the state of oneness? Correct? Sarvajnaha sarvakarta cha katam atma bhavishyati. There is this atma you are talking, then there is sarvakarta, sarvatman. How does it happen? In other words, what is this sambandha between Ishvara and the Jiva? Then Sishyam Pratityam Prichantam Vaktum Arabate Guru. So his own introduction to the text is a true seeker will have these questions. A true seeker, this is why if you look at the nature of questions that we ask is an index of our evolution. That's why I talked about the set of questions. Because look at Mundaka Upanishad. Mundaka Upanishad starts by saying Shunakaha Mahashalaha Vidhivat Upasanna Angirasam Papracha Kasmin Vijnate Sarvamitam. See the kind of questions he is asking. Kasmin Vijnate Sarvamitam Vijnatam Bhavatiti. Tell me, by knowing that, I will be known of everything. So the quality of question is different. The question is very different. That is an index of the evolution. That is the index of the thoughts that have evolved in us. And that is why the 6 questions in Krishna Upanishad are of a much higher category. He asked what is, in the first, he asked what is this, he asked what is this matter and, Rai and Purusha, and what is this matter and spirit. Then he asks what is really the Atman, how is it? The kind of questions the 6 disciples asked are much bigger. That is a true Jijnasa. So, in Manasollasa, he also plants these questions as a preamble to the Dakshinamurti Stotra. He says a true seeker will really get more and more he will get unsettled with this. I mean, this will start bothering him. Who am I? Where from I have come, and what is this relationship? So he says such a question always exists for a true seeker. And ahetuka daya sindhu, that is the definition of a guru in Viveka Chudamani. Therefore, the guru, out of infinite compassion, for no reason or any prayojana, he would want to resolve these doubts in the minds of the true seeker. And that is his interpretation of why Dakshinamurti Stotra resolves these kinds of questions which a true seeker will always go after. So this is the first shloka. Vishwam darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam nijantar gatam pashyan atmani mayaya bahiriva udbhutam yatha nidraya yas sakshat kurute prabodha samaye swatmanameva dvayam tasmai shri gurumurtaye namayidam Sri Dakshinamurtaye. The last line more or less is the same until the 8th or the 9th shloka. Tasmai is Chaturthi Vibhakti, to him. Saha padasya tasmai, Chaturthi Vibhakti. Saha taute, tasmai. Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Nama. So the Kriya Padam is Nama. So I worship him, my salutations is to him. And then the whole descriptions are the Nama Idam Sri Dakshinamurtaye. So that is the last line here. I will go through a simple thing, but then we will see it in detail. It says Vishwam. Vishwam is the world. Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam. Tulyam is the equal or just like that, equivalence. So he says the world is like that. Like what? It says Darpana Drishyamana. Darpanam is a mirror, not the spectacle, the mirror. So the world is like seeing a reflected image in a mirror. There is a nagara. There is a nagara, leave the nagari, there is a bimba. The mirror has a pratibimba. So he says the world is like the pratibimba. It's not the bimba, it is the pratibimba. So forget about the bimba now. Our entire focus is now on the pratibimba. He says Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam. Okay? It is like, the world is like a reflected image in a mirror. Nija Antargatam. It is actually inside, but it appears as though it is being reflected in a mirror, and that is what the world is. So he is trying to explain the world like this. So he uses a mirror and a reflection as one example. There are two examples with which he brings this concept. The first example is Bimba Pratibimba. Mirror and the reflections of the mirror, the image that you see in the mirror. That is the first example he takes to create a relationship between Jiva and the Jagat. So because the Vishwam is the Jagat that we are talking, and the reference frame is the person, that's why it says your reflection is the world. So now the Jiva and the Jagat are connected through this example. Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nija Antargatam. Pashyan Atmani, then he gives a second example. Pashyan Atmani Mayaya Bahiriva Udbhutam Yatha Nidraya. Yatha Nidraya, when we are sleeping, meaning the dreaming state. When we are sleeping and we are experiencing a dream. So the second example he takes is the dream. So the first line brings one example, which is a mirror and a reflected image in a mirror. So we will explain it, see it in detail. I am only bringing the idea. The first example he brings to connect between the Jiva and the Jagat, he uses one example, and that is, it is nothing like a mirror and the reflected images on a mirror. First line. Second line he says, it is like the world that you see in a dream. In the dream we have a world actually. So Yata nidraya bahiriva udbhutam. We'll see it in detail. You know, in a dream, logically, dream is a very complex thing. If in a dream, we'll come to it later, but I'll quickly want to, bahiriva udbhutam I want to say. In a dream, if I catch a flight, simple logic says it cannot happen. A flight is a very big, it's a very big gadget. There is a finite space, fair amount of space. There is a parking gate. In fact, in the dream, I may even run through the aero bridge also. So all that, if I dream, that means it is happening. It cannot happen inside. There is a finite space here. So bahiriva udbhutam, but pasyan atmani. He is seeing inside. But the effect you are creating is as though you are seeing, because only then it is logical. No? Otherwise, you will shoot the whole thing with illogical things. How can you, where is this airport inside? Where is this big plane and the aero bridge? All that you will shoot it down. We are reconciling to the dream because at the dreaming state, we will come to it. The dreaming state, bahiriva udbhutam. So he is taking two examples here. One example he takes is a reflected image in a mirror. Second example he takes is a dream. He says the dream you are seeing inside, but it looks as though you are seeing outside. This is one example. And second example he says is there is an image that you see in the mirror, that pratibimba you think it is a bimba. These are the two examples. Now we have to understand this. Third and fourth line we will, Sakshat Kurute is your ability to understand it. We will come to it later. So we will take these two examples now. So what is the idea behind these two examples and what are these two examples? Because it is very deeply we have to understand this part of it. So first of all we will see the mirror. Take the mirror example first. Now there are a few things which we have to be absolutely clear about this. Suppose there is a mirror. And first of all, the mirror is the substratum. This is adhisthana. If the mirror is not there, there is no image. If you remove the mirror, where is the image? The very existence of the image critically depends on the mirror. So first thing let us understand in this example is the mirror is the adhisthana. So the experience of what you see in the mirror requires an adhisthana called the mirror. If the mirror has lost its sheen, the mercury is gone, no reflection will happen. That's the first property we have to remember. So by that, what is being conveyed now is that first you need a adhisthana. You need a substratum for a world of experience. Otherwise not possible. If mirror is not there, nothing gets reflected. If mirror is there, then a whole lot of things may, so we can see a whole lot of things happening there. And we are able to see all of them because the mirror is there. Just as much as the white screen is there, that is why we are able to see the movie. If you remove the white screen, movie will not be seen. The light will never get reflected. So what you see is a reflected form of the reality. And to see the reflected form of the reality, you need a reflecting medium. So that is this mirror. Property 1, we must keep this in mind. The mirror is the reflecting medium or the adhisthana on which there is this experience which is aropita, which is latched on the top of it. Because of this, if this was not there, that's first property. The second property we must understand is, that's what I meant. The image has no independent existence at all. Image has no independent existence. If you remove the mirror, the images are all gone. I am not talking about the original, I am talking about the image. Don't worry about the original now. The example here is only Darpana Drishyamana Nagari, not the Nagaram itself. We are talking about Darpana Drishyamana Nagari. So the image has no independent existence of its own. The image existence critically depends on the existence of a reflecting medium. This is property 2. Image cannot have an independent existence. Impossible. As long as mirror is there, the image is there. Mirror is gone, the image is gone. So That's the second important thing that we must understand. Third is the mirror is Satya, the image is Mithya. The image is not Satyam. Obviously. Because what is the definition of Satyam? That which exists today, tomorrow, forever. If you remove the mirror, if you remove the white screen, the movie is gone. So it is not Satya. Mithya is a transitory reality which can be misleading. Mithya means that which is illusory, transitory. Whereas Satyam is something which remains. The very definition of Satyam is it is there in all the three kalas. It existed yesterday, existed today, it will exist tomorrow also. That is called Satyam. Anything which doesn't fit into it is not Satya. So the mirror is Satyam. The image is Mithya. This is the third. Image is Mithya. The moment you remove the mirror, it's gone. So it's all Mayajal. But it looks so real. If for the moment, if the whole room is full of mirror, the existence of mirror is not of cognizance to us, we will take the image to be real. Will we not? Suppose we never knew the boundaries of the mirror. Then we think the image is the original. That's all we will be able to do. Unless we know there is a mirror and this is actually a pratibimba, all those if we don't know, we'll take the image to be real. Actually, image is Mithya. Where the mirror goes, the image gone. Right? Whereas mirror is Satyam, because mirror can exist independently of the image. You can remove the image, mirror will still be there. But if you remove the mirror, the image cannot be there. This is the third important issue which we must understand from this mirror example. Fourth, the reflected image does not affect the reflecting medium. Just because the image you see a fire, the mirror will not get burnt. Bimba may be fire, the pratibimba is therefore fire. So the reflected images cannot do anything to the reflecting medium. You know, in Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 2, there are in 17th, 18th sloka, he says Atman cannot be burnt, cannot be dried, cannot be cut. Nainam chiddanti shastrani, nainam pavakaha. That is the idea. Idea is the mirror will never get affected by whatever image is being superimposed on it. In a movie, just because there was a huge fight and major fire, the white screen is not going to burn. White screen will remain white screen. That is the property of the white screen. In other words, the reflecting medium will stand away from the images which are being reflected on it. It is not affected. Please understand this property also. It is not affected. The Bhagavad Gita shlokas are the ones which we should remember. It cannot be dried, it cannot be cut. It cannot be, just because the images show something, a big axe is cutting something, mirror will not become two. Mirror will show that. That's the end of the story. Mirror will be intact. So that is the next thing. The reflected medium may be anything, but images may be anything. Reflected medium, nothing will happen. Right? That is a very nice thing which you remember. Lastly, right, the experience need not be real. Image is only so the experience may not be reality, because the moment you remove the mirror, the experience is gone. So, we don't know what is reality now. See, we can't entirely think the experience is reality 100%. We have no idea, because unless we see the bimba, with pratibimba, up to a point you can make a mapping. Once you remove the mirror, the reality is lost. So the perception can be limited and conditioned by the reflecting medium. The reflecting medium is now moderating all our reality. So the reality is actually a contrived reality. Not the true, not necessarily the true reality, because it is conditioned and moderated by the mirror. To just extend this example a little bit more, if you break the mirror into 12, you will see 12 suns now. There are no 12 suns. That's why the reality, the image can be misleading. Reality, the bimba is not necessarily pratibimba. If the reflecting medium is not sometimes proper, then the reality and the perception can be very different. You break the mirror into 12 pieces, you'll get 12 suns or 12 objects. In reality, there may be only one object. So why is he bringing all these? So he is saying this is exactly is the relationship between Jiva and the world. This is the first thing he actually brings. He says, that's why he says that the Jiva Atma is a reflecting medium. And what you see, so it depends on the quality of the reflecting medium now. And what you see is actually is not the function of what it is, it's a function of what it is here on this side. Now, this has a lot of practical meaning. These are deep psychology, it has a lot of practical meaning. See, your world and my world are very different. Please understand that. You know a person whom I don't know. That person does not exist in my world now. Tomorrow you introduce that person to me, in my world that person is also included. I am just giving a small example. In other words, what am I saying? You called a reflecting medium, you reflected something that was your world. I called a reflecting medium, had a scope of my reflection, and that was what my world was. So the world, according to Shankaracharya says, world is not what is outside. I mean, we have forgotten the mirror. We take the image to be the real. He says, no, the image is not the real. What you choose to see, only you will see. Na? That's why it's called Loka. Vishwam is also called Loka, because Lokra, Lochra, Darshane. What you see is your world. In other words, therefore, the world is actually narrowcast for you. It's not a broadcast. We think world is a broadcast. It is not. World is a narrowcast to each person. My view, that's why we use the word worldview. My worldview is different from your worldview, we say. But in a Vedantic sense, so if you extend this logic, he goes to the extreme and then he brings this point. The world that you seem to see is actually a reflection of what you are. You want to see good things, you'll only see good things outside. You want to see bad things, you'll see only bad things outside. Your world is only that much. You want to see good things, you'll see only good things outside. So if we extend this logic and go further and further and further, he comes to a final conclusion and he makes this point that the world is actually nothing but a set of reflected images which are here.
Sir, I forgot my Bible last. Thank you.
The world is nothing but a reflection. World, we may, for all practical purposes, there is a room and all that. That is one level of reality. The ultimate reality of world is you as a jiva, as a mirror, and what reflects in your mirror is actually the world. That is all is the world. So this is the first example he actually brings. That's why he says, Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam. So what is the relation with Jiva and Jagat? He says, there is nothing like Jagat. Jagat is what you actually say. There was a nice quote which somebody was asked, who created the world? This is a question, we talk about at one level, we talk about, origin of the universe and so on. The answer to that is, the person who chooses to see the world at a certain point in time creates his world. That is the real meaning. Honestly speaking, that is what it is. At this moment, at this split moment, I have decided to see. And I see only something. And that is all is the world. That is why there are creatures, their world is different because they don't have pancha indriyas. They have 3 indriyas. There are creatures which cannot hear. Their world is different from your world and my world. There are creatures which don't have eye, but they have sound. Their perspective of world. So the real meaning of world, who creates the world? Every one of us create the world. How do you create the world? At this point in time, if I choose to see, then I create the world. That is what he is actually coming through this idea. So it has a Vedantic implication, it has a psychological implication, because it is also psychology at the end of the day. It has profound implications of what it means the world is. At a Vedantic level, he says, therefore, this world is all that you are saying are all Some practical purposes you have put some tags. It's not what world is. World is what is mapping at every nanosecond into your mirror. That's why it keeps changing also. And because it is changing, it should be mithya. And world doesn't exist for us at least 3 hours, 4 hours a day, every day. Because in deep Sushupti, we have destroyed the world. Where was the world? We have completely destroyed the world. At least in Swapna, the world is still there. In Sushupti, the world is completely destroyed. We were dull and dead. And we woke up. But there was somebody, in other words, the mirror was there, the image was not there. The independent existence was there. In Sushupti, the mirror was there. The image was not there. Because we chose to remove. The world, therefore, is not there. So, that which does not exist, how can it be Satyam? Because I am talking of my experience. I don't want any proof from any of you. I know that there are 3 hours, 4 hours, nothing existed for me. I got up and said, something happened. I can't even explain what I mean. I said, Sukham, it was nothing but Ananda. Go to sleep. And in fact, many have commented on that. The experience of a deep sleep, if somebody has to describe, first of all, it is difficult to describe. Experience cannot be given an expression generally. Assuming we are trying to describe the experience of a deep sleep, you go and ask anybody in the world, they will say the same thing. It is Advaitam actually. They will all say it was all peaceful. There is nothing more you can say. What can you say about deep sleep? You say it was good. And the experience of my deep sleep, intuitively I am able to understand the same as the experience of your deep sleep. It's the same as the experience of your deep sleep, and your deep sleep. It's all that pure reality which removed the reflection and it stayed on its own. It stayed. What is the proof it stayed? Because I got up and said I had good sleep. The continuity otherwise would have been lost. Otherwise I would have woken up not as Mahadevan, somebody else. Since I woke up as Mahadevan, the continuity is there now. So the proof is there that I was the witness. So that eyewitness is what he is talking about, is the one which chooses, is like a mirror, and whatever image you see is the world. It's not the Bimba. The Pratibimba is the world. Bimba is not the world. It's only the Pratibimba which is the world. So I choose at this point in time that this is the reflecting medium, and therefore this is the image I see, and I take it to be original. I take it to be real. Because we are at that level of understanding, at that plane of reality we seem to be operating. But he is drawing us deep into this thought. He says at the end of the day, world is a notional idea. And I, for one, believe. That's why at this point in time, if I choose to see, I will create the world. I have no difficulty in making this statement. So world is a notional idea. A practical idea for Vyavahara. If you remove Vyavahara, world is not there. That is what he means by saying Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nija Antargatam. It is actually everything is inside. It is only getting reflected in a particular way we want to. Therefore, we see it. So this is the first example he brings through that. First Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nija Antargatam. Then he takes a second example. Pashyan Atmani Maya Bahiriva Udbhutam Yatha Nidraya. So it's already 7. I think we will not get into it. We will take that example next week when we meet, where he brings the notion of dream, and he uses the whole process of dream. See, the greatest difference between Indian psychology and the modern psychology is, for some reason, modern psychology stopped with the wakeful state. Much of their analysis revolved around the wakeful state, whereas much of the Indian psychology got into the 4 states, although the 4th state was not available for analysis as much as Sushupti, partially Sushupti, but to a large extent Jagrat and Swapna. So Swapna is a state which needs to be analyzed because it throws some profundity in understanding ourselves, understanding reality, because it is a God created demo of some reality which we may have to understand, which is mimicked and played through a Swapna. So that is the example he brings through in the second line, where he says, Pashyan Atmani Maya Bahiriva Udbhutam Yatha Nidraya. While sleeping, you create a world which looks almost real, absolutely real, but logically it is outside. During the state of dreaming. After that, you may dismiss after you get up. During the state of dreaming, there is no conflict in you. And to board a plane, take a run in a boarding bridge and all that requires so much of square meters of space. That means it must be happening outside, not inside. It must be happening outside. So that's why Bahiriva. Look, it gives an impression as though it is happening outside. We'll see that in some detail next. Okay. He sees in him. Yeah. He sees in him. Huh? Yeah, there is a Guruvayur Prasadam. Please partake the Prasadam. Yeah, it's done.
Jivatma is the mirror or reflecting medium, sir?